Let's start the session. So hello everyone. So for the next couple of days, we will be working with DOM, understanding the concepts even in greater depth, and we will see multiple ways to create elements dynamically. And once that is done, essentially you will be able to create any user interface in JavaScript, or more specifically, you will be able to work with DOM manipulations using JavaScript. Okay, that's kind of a goal. So we'll keep it very, very simple. We will take small examples one at a time to understand each and every method very clearly. Okay, and then we will kind of take some tips and tricks, some shortcuts, some common use cases, so that you get a context about where these things can be applied. So that's what the session will be all about. Okay, so primarily now in the initial session, we'll be talking about dynamically creating elements using there are a couple of DOM methods that we all need to be familiar with. Okay, and one of them is create element. This is used to dynamically create DOM element. Okay, and there is something called as create text node. This is used to create text node. Okay, these are the two important methods. And then you might already be familiar with an inner HTML property, right? Where you can directly set the DOM content as string. Okay, and then we kind of have a very brief idea about lot of DOM manipulations method like insert, adjacent, HTML. So all of you remember all these things? Okay, these things we'll be covering today, but the other things is clear to everyone. Events, event bubbling, event capturing, okay, insert, adjacent, HTML and things like that. Is it okay? Okay, so we'll take it from there and let's see how we can understand more about DOM, and let's create some DOM now. Now we already know how to create DOM element using inner HTML, right? But now let's take a look at a couple of DOM methods. Now the difference in using inner HTML and the DOM method is when you use the DOM method, you actually get the DOM element back so that you can directly access the properties on that element. Okay, and when you build it using the string, it's simple string, right? You can, in fact, strings are useful when you need to create large amount of DOM element, right? But sometimes when you work with framework, internally framework uses these DOM elements to create the user interfaces for the application. Okay, that's why we just need to be aware of these methods. Okay, so to understand this, let's kind of go back to, I will use JSBin, okay, and I'll just give it a title here. Okay, and let's create an H1 calling learning DOM. Okay, so this is a very simple HTML, right? We already know this HTML. Okay, now this is fine. Now this is statically created content, right? The content is directly hard-coded within the HTML page. Okay, now let's see how we can dynamically create content. Okay, one way that we already familiar with is something like this. Say maybe we have a div here with an ID of say content. It can be any idea. Okay, and maybe somewhere down the line in here JavaScript will say const content element equal to document dot query selector content. Okay, and then we will say content element dot inner HTML. Okay, and we can give any HTML here, right? So this is one way to create DOM element that we all are familiar with. Okay, but apart from this, we can also create a DOM element using the DOM manipulation methods. Let's see how to do that. So let's create a new paragraph element. Okay, I'll call it as para. Okay, and we will use the document dot create element method to create this new element, right? And as a parameter, we have to pass the type of element that we are creating. So here you can give any valid element, for example, div, or maybe a paragraph. Okay, you just have to give that element name. Okay, no need to give curly braces and everything. Okay. So any valid HTML will go here, right? Span, label, whatever you want to create. Okay, so let's create a paragraph now. Okay, now when you execute the command document.create element with a parameter of para, and you get an object back that is stored within the variable para. Now this DOM is only created in memory, right? Only created in memory. Why? Because we are storing in variable. We are storing the reference in a variable, correct? So you won't be able to see this paragraph created here. For example, if you open up the developer toolbox, and if you try to inspect the DOM here, you will see there is a hello DOM here which we are already familiar with, right? But there is no additional paragraph element created, right? Now, when you create a DOM using the document.create element, we have to add back this DOM back to the actual document. Okay, right now you can just simply do a log here, console.log para, and let's see what is the output here. See, you get the paragraph element, that p tag, opening and closing braces here, right? Okay, so there is no content, that's why this is empty. So is this clear so far, everyone? Okay, yeah, great. Okay, so this is how you create a paragraph element. Now, so far the paragraph element is created and it's in the memory variable called para. Okay, now let's add some content to the para. Now to add content to the para, we can simply use the inner HTML for adding HTML content, or you could also use the text content to add content which is not text. When I say not, sorry, to add content which is not an HTML, I am a text content. Okay, and now if you take a look at the log here, you can see that you have this paragraph created with a content called I am a text content, right? But this is still in memory. Okay, we have to add this back to the DOM. Okay, that's where the third steps comes into play. Okay, and now what is the third step, right? So this paragraph can be added to any place in the DOM. So for example, if I go back to my application, let's say we have to add that paragraph within this div with an ID of content, right? So this is where I need that paragraph. So I could go back here in the code. Okay, and we already have that content element, right? So maybe I could do something like content element dot append para. Okay, content element dot append child para. I think this should actually work. I think the variable name, yeah, content element, spelling wrong, right? Okay, now see. Now you can immediately see this DOM is getting added, and you can see that DOM in this output window here. Okay, you use the method called append child to add it to the DOM. You can also use the append method. Okay, because by default it will add as the child only of that specific element. Okay, append or append child. Okay, these methods will come in very, very handy. Okay, and instead of text, if you need to pass in HTML content, you could say para.inner HTML equal to, and I'll simply say h2 I am in a para. Okay, so the spelling should be correct of inner HTML. Okay, and you get the output here, I am in a para. Is this part very, very clear to everyone so far? Let me know in the chat window. Okay, and you can create any element now. Okay, paragraph, div, tags, any valid HTML element. Now the thing here is, the next question will be, how will you attach events to these elements, right? So we will use our already well-known method called add event listener for the sake of adding events. So everything will work as expected. For example, let's add a click event handler to this para, right? So maybe I have a function here called on para click. I'm just writing a function first here, and I'll simply do an alert. You clicked me. Okay, nothing will happen. This is a simple function. Okay, but then what I'll do here is I'll say para.add event listener, okay, click, and I will pass in this on para click as a reference to this event. Okay, so at this point in time, you attach an event listener to the paragraph element, right? So when you click on this para, you should get that alert. Is this clear, everyone, so far? Okay, so absolutely a quick revision. The only difference here being we are now dynamically creating the DOM element using the document.create element. Okay, here paragraph, and we are adding that back to the DOM. Okay, we are adding it to content element. Content element is nothing but the query selector with an ID of content, and then we are attaching an event listener. Now, remember one thing in DOM, right? Document object model. Whenever you create DOM objects dynamically and you add event listeners, there is always a chance that in large applications there could be memory leak. And typically memory leak happens when you add objects to the DOM and you add lot of event listeners and you do not clear the event listeners. Okay, that's where typically memory leaks happens. So ideally, whenever you do the cleanup activity, you always have to clear all the event listeners that you are adding, so that will keep your memory optimized. Okay, for example, say just to show you, so let's create a button element. Okay, I'll actually create here. I'll say const button equal to document dot create element, and I'll say button. Okay, and then I could say button dot what is the value? I'm not sure. Yeah, inner text equal to click me. Okay, let me just check this out. And then I will say content element dot append button. Okay, so we added a button here, right? And you can see the button here. Okay, but then nothing is happening when you click on the button, right? Because you haven't written a code. So I'll simply copy this paragraph's event listener. Okay, and I'll add the same listener to the button also. Okay, and we'll get the same alert message. Okay, now at this point in time, when you click on the button, you will get the message you clicked me. Maybe there's a requirement in my application that this is a huge form. Assume this is a form, okay? And you have large data, okay? And once you fill in the data, you click on submit, right? But then you should only be able to click on the submit button once, okay? So typically what people do, you disable the button and you do a lot of things like that, right? Ideally, the submit button should only be clicked once so that it is disabled till the processing happens, right? Otherwise, what will happen if you click on it multiple times, right? Multiple requests can go to the server. So the best way to do that is definitely disable the button from a user interface perspective, but remove the event handler itself if it is not required. Okay, so how can I remove the event handler, right? So one thing to notice if you want to remove the event handler, you need to have a function handle to the function of that event, right? That's why as a best practice, whenever you dynamically create events, you always reference the events and you have this function reference or variable reference always available so that you can remove it as well. Okay, so for example, what I now need to do is this button should only be clickable once. Okay, so let me just make change here. Okay, I'll create say one more method and I'll simply call it as on click once. You click me only once. Okay, and here instead of on para click, I'll say on click once. Okay, just so that we can differentiate between these two alerts, right? So at this point in time, if you click on this button, you get that message, right? You clicked me only once. But again, when you click, you still get the message. Now, what I want is, once I click on this message, right, that event handler should be removed so that next time the click should not fire. Okay? So to do that, what I can do is, there are various ways to do it. The simplest way is once this button method is button is called, right? Here I could say button dot remove event listener. Okay, and which is the event? The click event, and which is the method attached to it? On click once. Now this will remove the event listener that is attached to that specific element, right? So at this point in time, now see, if you click on the button, you will get the alert. Okay, but then if you click on the button again, nothing is happening because you removed the event listener. Okay, maybe after some time when the processing is done, you can enable or you can add the event back. Okay, but when you click on the para, you'll always get that alert. Okay, because there we are not removing the event listener. So depending on functionality, you can use this small concept to build a better user interface and to have a better user experience. So is this thing clear to everyone so far? Any doubts? Okay. Okay. So this is the absolute fundamentals we are talking about. Okay, let's now dig a bit deeper into this and understand how we can do basic CRUD operations on the DOM, right? Later on, when we build the applications, all these things will become very connected and related kind of thing, right? So we know how to add an element, right? Similarly, we can replace an element. Similarly, we can add an element before some element. We can add an element after some element, right? We can remove an element, and a lot of things can be done. Okay, so just to test this out, I'll just keep a reference to this file, and I'll create a new JS bin. Okay, and I'll simply call it as DOM2 for now. Okay, now assume we have this simple DOM structure, right? Maybe we have an unordered list here, something like it's like your to-do item, maybe, right? Learn React, something like this. A very simple to-do list. Okay, let me add 3 lists. Okay, so this is the markup, right? Okay, and now let's try to dynamically add remove elements using this DOM methods. Okay, that's kind of an idea that we are trying to adapt here. Now, okay, there are a lot of ways to do that. You can give it an ID here so that, okay, as a best practice, let's give an ID of say task. Okay, we have an ID here called task. And now let's do some manipulation here, right? So first thing I'll do here is I'll simply do a console.clear so that our console window is kind of cleaned up before every execution of the code. Okay, let's grab the task object. So I'll call it as say to-do list. Document.query selector, and I'll simply pass in the task ID, right? So this part is very, very uh, simple and clear to everyone, I suppose, at this point in time. Okay. Now, to programmatically create a new to-do, right? So this is kind of the syntax, right? So create new item dynamically. Later on, you can add a button, click on the button and do that. But from a concept perspective, we simply say new to-do equal to document dot create element. Okay, we are creating a new li element, right? And then we will say new to do dot say text content, because we don't want HTML content here, and I'll say do assignment. Okay, right now this is in memory, right? So we could say to do list dot append child. Okay, new to do, and you will see this new to do is getting added, right? But there seems to be some issue. Let's verify what is happening here. Okay, spelling of content, right? Text content. Okay, now you can see that this new to do is dynamically added to the to do list here. Okay, this is kind of quite simple to understand, right? So far. Okay, if you inspect your DOM now, at this point in time, apart from this three hard-coded elements, you'll also see the fourth element added in the DOM. Okay, so there's a fourth element here. Okay, because we said append child, right, of the current element that we are selected. Okay, so this is kind of again a quick revision, right? Similarly, if you want to create more elements, we can do it. Okay, now there are various ways. You can actually, there are methods called for example, just like append child, right? There are methods called insert before, insert after, right? Let me just show you the syntax for that. So MDN insert before. So when you say insert before, there should be a reference of the element, right? Before which you would like to insert. Similarly, there could be insert after. Okay, so I'm just showing you the syntax of that in here. So when in doubt, always go to MDN, and this is where you will get the full syntax of your DOM API. Okay, now see, so this is the documentation, right? So insert before method inserts a node before a reference node. So you have to tell before which node you would want to insert that node, right? So here's a full syntax, new node and the reference node. Okay, so let's try this out maybe. So let's create one more node. Say let to do 2 equal to document dot create element li. Okay, and here we will say to do 2 dot text content learn Angular, right? Now, instead of append, see, append will definitely work. So I could simply come back here and say to do list dot append child, say to do 2. Okay, append will always add to the end of the list. Okay, but then instead of append child, I'll say insert before. Okay, and this is a new node, and the reference node is new to do. Now see, this new node called learn Angular is actually added before the new to do element, and that is what we can visualize here on the output. Is this clear, everyone, so far? Similarly, you have insert after method also. It's just like your insert adjacent HTML, right? But that is used for string HTML, and this is used for actual DOM objects. So is this clear, everyone? Let me know in the chat window. Okay. Okay. Similarly, you have replace child method to replace a node also. There are a lot of methods like this. Now, why are these methods important, right? See, essentially in real life, when you work on front-end project, you may be using framework, right? For example, Angular, React, Vue.js, something like that. Okay, but all those framework internally does these things. And in certain cases, when you want to customize the user interface or maybe customize the framework itself, right? You should know all these methods. In typical framework development, you only need to have minimal knowledge. But in case you are building some custom components, reusable libraries and frameworks, right? Or you are building some projects in vanilla JavaScript, all this knowledge will become very, very helpful. Okay, so there's a replace child method also to replace the content. For example, instead of insert before, okay, this will insert before new to do element. Okay, there is a method called say replace child. Okay, so there's a method called replace child. Okay, but then when you say replace child, right, definitely it should be called on the parent element. Okay, it should be called on the parent element. And what is the parent element here in this list? Can anyone tell me what is the root element in this list of to-dos in the chat window? UL, right? Yeah, because UL contains the li, right? So all the li's are child elements of the UL. So if in case you need to remove some element, the best thing is to tell the parent, right? To remove element or to replace the element, right? So for example, maybe here I could say, instead of inserting the to-do, here I'll say to-do list dot replace child. Okay, and the new child is say to-do 2 and replace the old one, which was the old one, new to do. Okay, now you will see that do assignment is replaced and you have the value learn Angular. Okay, the to do has been replaced. Okay, remember this syntax. Okay, in case of doubt, you can always refer the documentation. Here is the modified to do, and here is the reference to do, right? Whatever to do name you gave here. So you can do the CRUD operations on the DOM. Okay, so you can add element, you can replace element, you can update element. Similarly, you can also remove the element. Okay, maybe okay, all these things for demonstration I am directly showing here. Okay, later on when we build project, right, this will happen based on some events like button click and something like that. Okay, all those things will happen. Okay, for now we are simply trying to understand the concept. Okay, now let's remove the to do. Maybe what I need is I need to remove this to do, right? Say maybe after 3 seconds or after 5 seconds, I just want this learn Angular to do to be removed. So since we are not putting a button click right now, right, I'll simply say after say 3 seconds or 5 seconds, so that you also know how to work with timer. So maybe I'll come back here. Just a second now. Okay. Okay, so I'll come back here and say set timeout. Okay, and I'll pass in a function to be executed here. Okay, and this should run after say 5 seconds or maybe 3 seconds. Okay, and here if I simply put an alert now, hi. Okay, you will see after 3 seconds you will have the alert. Okay, and you get the message here, right, called hi. Okay, so set timeout is not JavaScript actually. It's provided by your browser, so it's implemented in the browser. Okay, in case it might be implemented in the Chrome's V8 engine. Okay, so all browser implement this method. So this is not JavaScript. This is browser's method, which is directly talking to the native browser code, something like that. Okay. So after 3 seconds, what I want is I want this learn Angular to be automatically removed. Okay. So instead of clicking on a button, I am doing it this way. Okay. So here I'll simply say to do list dot remove child. Okay. And let me just give this reference of to do to. So let's see after 3 seconds whether this learn Angular is automatically removed or not. Yeah, now it's gone, right? Okay. Maybe I'll put in an alert here. Okay. Now after 3 seconds, you will get the alert called learn Angular will be removed, and that element is automatically removed from the DOM. So far, is this clear, everyone? So you can do all the CRUD operations on the DOM, right? You can attach properties, attributes to this, right? For example, click event. You can add classes. You can change the style attribute. All those things can be done on this element because they are actual DOM elements. So far, is it clear, everyone? Set timeout also, how set timeout is working. Set timeout needs a function. Okay, this is a callback. This is not immediately executed. Okay, at this point in time, if you do an alert here, this alert will run first. Okay, this alert will run first. Just a second now. Because JavaScript is synchronous, correct? So see, this alert will run first. Then after 3 seconds, your event loop, right, within this browser calls your callback function after that specific 3 seconds time interval, and then this message is that you're actually executing this function here. Okay, this is the function that is executed. Okay, so remember this, you are not executing this function. This function is executed by the browser engine after certain time interval. So it is very, very clear, everyone. And those who are new to JavaScript specifically, okay, others, those who already work might be familiar with all these things. Okay, just let me get the know the confirmation in chat window. Okay, yeah. Okay. So see, now using these methods, right, you can actually do DOM manipulation, right? Create DOM element, okay, add events to the DOM, maybe remove the events, maybe add attributes, right? Remove attributes, okay, maybe delete an element, maybe update an element, maybe replace an element, right? So technically, you can do all the DOM manipulations, and using this knowledge, you can actually build your own small library also, DOM manipulation library, like jQuery, maybe a tiny version of React, maybe a tiny version of Vue. All those things can be easily done using these 4 methods and some common design patterns and principles. Okay? So we'll talk about that as we progress in the course. So now at this point in time, you should be able to create any DOM manipulation, at least the basic DOM manipulation. There are a lot of methods, but at least you should be able to start and you should be able to research how to go about understanding the functions. Okay, let's now try to understand a couple of examples and small use cases, and let's see whether we're able to get something useful out of this lecture, right? So let me just take an example now. Okay, I'll take some use cases and I'll demo it to you. Okay, I will create a new code pen. Oh, sorry, JS bin. Okay, whatever editor you are using. Okay, just a second now. Okay, so there are many things actually that we want to typically do when we are working with DOM, right? For example, okay, certain things you already know now, creating DOM elements dynamically, right? Drag and drop, okay, creating tables dynamically, okay, understanding when the browser window is resized, okay, and getting the specific position of the mouse with respect to any specific DOM elements. There are kind of lot of things in there. Okay, let me just take a small example first. And okay, so one common uh, use case is typically, say, when you build a model dialog, right? So everyone knows what is a model dialog, right? A dialog that pops up. Okay, there is a use case that you need to be able to detect when it is clicked outside the model. So for example, if you take any model dialog, okay, let me just come back here. Maybe I'll go to Bootstrap. Okay, but it doesn't matter. Huh? You can write your on CSS also. I'm just showing you what is a model dialog. Okay, and in this docs, okay, and I'll go to components. Okay, and there will be a dialog somewhere here, right? Yeah, model dialog is there. Okay, and yeah, so this is a model dialog. Okay, and many times you want to detect the click outside the model and inside the model. Okay, this is a very, very common requirement. Okay, now how can you do this using the knowledge of DOM and the events, right? So this is one very common activity that you typically need to understand. So essentially, we are not using any model as of now, but let me just come back here. Assume this is a model. Okay, so div with an ID of model. I'm not putting the CSS, okay? I'm just putting a content here. Okay, maybe it has an h3 of, say, title. Okay, and it has some content. Okay, a very simple model. Okay, just so that we have some visible styling now, I'll simply put a border around the divs. Okay, so that we can see that, right? And maybe a bit of padding of, say, 10 pixel. Okay, but we are not kind of building a complete model. We are just kind of keeping it here like this, right? Maybe this model has a button inside it, right? Okay, if I put the CSS, this will become a model dialog. Okay, but don't worry about the CSS for now. So we have a button here. Okay, and I'll simply do one more thing in here. Okay, display, I'll set it to flex. Okay, and flex direction, I'll set it to column. Okay, so ignore this CSS for now. I'm just putting it here for reference. Okay, and now say we have something like a model dialog. Though it doesn't look like a model, but it's a model, right? So typically when you have a model, there's a need to determine when it is click inside the model and outside the model. Okay, this button may have its own click handler. Okay, but that's okay. We are not putting it here because it's not very important. Okay, let's see how we can detect click outside here. So essentially what you have to do here, whenever you need to detect the click outside, okay, typically when you build a single page application, you have to add an event listener to the document itself, the primary document, right? So you will see something like document dot add event listener click. Okay, and I'll just simply call it as page click. Okay, just for my reference here. And let's create that function. Okay, there are multiple ways to create a function. I'll simply call it, create it like this, page click. Okay, we'll get the event, right? So this is one way to create a function. And I'll simply alert now, alert an empty message. Okay, now when you click on the page, okay, if I enable JavaScript here, when you click on the page, you should get the alert, but for some reason, this is not working. Document.add event listener, click, and you have a page click event. Okay, it's actually working. Okay, so it's actually working here. But the thing is, how will you know whether it's clicked inside the model or outside the model? Okay, see, observe here. When I click inside this model, right, you get the alert. But when I click on outside the model also, you get the alert, right? So we should be able to differentiate whether the click happened inside this model or outside the model. Is the requirement clear to everyone? Okay. Okay, there are many ways to do that actually. Here inside this, right, you could simply check for the target. So for example, I could say e dot target, right? And this will tell me what was the target of the event. For example, here just to check it out, I'll simply check the tag name. Okay, so tag name should give whether it was a div, paragraph, and something like that, right? So when I click outside, you see, you get it's an HTML, right? Because it's a parent document. If you click inside, you are getting H3 wherever the click happened. Okay, because see, we attach the click to the document, right? The entire document, anywhere you click, even on the button, it will work. Okay, it will tell this is a button click. Remember event delegation, right? Attach event to the parent element, right? And we can then target that out. Okay, and inside here, you can determine now whether the click happened inside or outside. Okay, for example, you have a reference to this model dialog, and then you can check here whether target object is model or not. If it is, you can do something. Otherwise, you can choose to ignore it. That condition will go here. Something like this. Maybe say you have this already element, right? Say model element equal to, what is the ID of this element? Model, right? So I'll say document dot query selector model. Okay, so you have a reference to the model, and here you could do an alert. Okay, and you could check if, okay, I'm just simply alerting here for your reference. Alert, okay, model dot contains event dot target. Okay, let's check what we are getting here, the output of this. Okay, and then I'll explain this. Okay, so now when I click inside the model, you get true, and when I click outside the model, you get false. Okay, so now what we are checking here is, so we have a reference to the model, right? And then we are checking when the click happen, whether this model, right, whatever model we had, whether it contains the target. That means the target was the model itself. If it is yes, this contains method will return true. Otherwise, it will return false. So when I click on this model, yeah, the target contains that model, so you will get it resultant value as true. And if you click outside, it doesn't contain the target, so you will get the result as false. Okay, and then you can store this into some variable, something like this, const, yeah, is clicked outside. Okay, and then you can do your check here, do your check, and logic goes here. Is this very clear, everyone? How you can implement things like this? Okay, using the base knowledge that we are trying to accumulate. Okay, and this knowledge will be useful when you build model dialog menus, right? Pop-up menus, all those things typically, because when you open a menu, right, you should be able to detect when it is clicked on the menu or outside the menu. Okay, because when you click outside the menu should automatically close. Is it clear, everyone? This requirement is very important to understand. Okay, and also you have a basic implementation idea, right? Okay, this is how you can. First is you attach an event to the document, and then whatever target you have, you can compare it. Okay, you can write a generic function also for this. Okay, so that whatever target you pass it to it, it will check against that. And then you will appropriately get the result true or. Okay, so this is one use case. Okay, so let's take one more example. Okay, let me take a useful example, one more. Okay, yeah. Now, one more useful example is actually in many applications, when you build user interface, right, you actually need to get the location or coordinate where your mouse is. Okay, and that's very useful actually when you build custom UI, or maybe you're building some games in using DOM. Okay, something like that. And the problem in the browser is you will not exactly get the right coordinates because of padding, margin, and the bounding boxes and things like that, right? So let me show you a small kind of code snippet which will help you kind of do that. Okay, the idea behind this is we need to get the mouse position relative to the clicked element. Okay, so wherever it is clicked, relative to that, we need to get the mouse position. Okay, that's kind of the idea. Okay, let me just show you now. So let's assume this only, same thing here. Okay, we have this DOM element, right? So let's try to attach an event here. So what I'll do here is I'll come back here and say, okay, maybe let me just create a new page because this is for DOM, right? Okay, let me just create a new JS bin. Okay, and let's say we have some divs here. Okay, and inside this we have some divs again, say 1, something like this, 4. Okay, and I'll simply put some basic styles here so that this divs are clearly visible. I'll give a width of say 100 pixel. Okay, and a height of say 100 pixel. Okay, I'll also give a border. Okay, and yeah, maybe a margin. Okay, yeah, a margin also. Okay, so this extra margin is because of this box here. Okay, let me just remove the margin for now. Okay, so these are our boxes. Okay, now we need to get the exact mouse coordinate, right? Because it also has a div here, right? Okay, here. Okay, this is an H2 say. Okay, and maybe when you move the mouse in H2, and this may be positioned differently. Okay, position can be absolute and relative and things like that. A lot of things that can go in here. Okay, I'm just showing you one example here. Okay, and now what I can do here is, say assume we need to say target this div. Okay, and let's attach an event handler to that. Okay, so we are kind of tracking the mouse movement now. So here I'll say const. Okay, let me just which div I would want to get. I'm just taking a random div here, ID equal to 3, just to show you. Okay, and I'll say element equal to document dot query selector 3. Okay, I'm just showing you one example here. We are grabbing this div with an ID of 3. That means wherever I move the mouse here, right? Now this div with an ID of 3, it's actually contained within div. That means when you want the mouse location, it should be relative to everything. It should account for this div, right? It should account for that height and width, everything. It has to be taken care kind of. Okay, that's kind of the idea behind this. Okay, so once you have that element, I could say, okay, I'm just closing this HTML here. I could say element dot add event listener. Okay, and mouse down. We are interested in mouse down. Okay, so we have this function as a parameter, and this is what will be invoked. Okay, whenever you click the mouse on that specific div. Okay, mouse down. Okay, let me open the console here so that you can see the output as well. Okay, so go to the console here. Okay, let me just put the console.clear. Okay, so that this output is kind of very clear here, right? And now what we can do here is in this place. So whenever the mouse is down, right? First thing is what I'll do, I'll say get the target. Okay, and here it's simple as const target equal to e dot target. Right, because this event object that you get right as part of the click handler, it contains lot of properties, and one of the important properties target. Okay, so once you grab the target, what you can do now is you can get the bounding rectangle of target, because every object is rectangular in DOM. Okay, so it has a bounding box. Okay, that has to be calculated correctly. So I'll say const rect, or maybe bounding rect equal to target dot get bounding client rect. This is the method. Okay, now this will contain your coordinates. Okay, x and y position. Then I could say calculate the mouse position. Okay, and it's as simple as doing const x equal to, first is e dot client dot x will give me the relative client x value where the click happened. Okay, but then we have to account for the bounding box. So we will deduct it, the left property, the left value or the x value from the bounding rect. Okay, let me just correct the spelling here. So this will account for the offset values correctly, kind of. Okay, if you only target e dot client x, the exact location of the click you might not get it actually. That's why you need to do this slight computation. Okay, similarly to get the y coordinate, you will simply say e dot const y equal to e dot client y minus bounding rect dot top. Okay, and then maybe I'll simply return this object back, or maybe for now I'll simply log it. Okay, I'll just log it as an object like this. So now if you take a look at the output here in the console window, okay, and if I go back and click on this 3, see you get 24, 25.375, 56, 56. Within this, you are getting the correct coordinates. Okay, and here we are not assigning it. So this will always give you the correct coordinate with respect to this specific object that we are attaching the event to. Is this very clear, everyone? Okay, this will need practice. Okay, so we'll have some use cases later on. Okay, where these things can be applied. Okay, so you have to get the correct computation. So typically when you build drag and drop applications, right, and you are building, say, tooltips or context menus, right, when you right click, there should be a context menu, right? So that context menu should exactly come where the mouse was right clicked. So all those requirements can be fulfilled from this small piece of code. Is this clear, everyone? Okay, let me know in the chat window. Okay, just a second. Let me just do a cleanup here. See, so this MDN, if you take a look exactly, because there are a lot of values here. Okay, client X, page Y, okay, certain browser. Now, if you take a look at this client X, okay, that's the reason I'm opening this documentation is because there are a lot of small things that we need to be aware of. See, the client X read-only property interface provides the horizontal coordinate within the application's viewport at which the event occurred as opposed to the coordinate within the page. Okay, so the slight difference in viewport and the coordinates within the page. So if you click on the viewport here, so viewport represents the normally rectangular area in computer graphics. Right? That's the entire screen visual. What is visible? Maybe there's a scroll bar in your page, right? And certain areas may not be in the viewport. So this client text is actually giving value according to the viewport. Okay. Now suppose you have pages below. So you scroll, correct? Now if you kind of do a click here, right? This will be according to what you see on the screen, not the relative page here. Okay, that's why you do the computation to get the correct value. Otherwise, you will get the wrong value here. If you scroll it, here you may get some different value from the value that you are expecting. Okay, now let me show you a more practical example of this. Probably let's take one more example. So what we can do here is, okay, let me just, so we have a learning DOM. Okay, let's just open a new JS bin. This is the last example for today. Okay, just give me a couple of minutes. And let's see whether we can quickly try to make something work here. Okay, so assume this is a context menu. Okay, and let's say we have a div. Okay, let me just try. I am not very sure whether it will immediately work now because I haven't practiced this. Okay, so um, let's just give it as context. Okay, and here I'll type in right click, okay, something like this. Okay, and maybe there's a menu here. Okay, this menu should be displayed whenever you right click on it. Okay, very rudimentary example I am taking actually to show what is the context menu. And within here, maybe you have say menu action 1, action 2, and action 3. Okay, and by default, this menu should not be displayed, right? So what I can simply say here in the CSS, I could simply target this menu and simply set display to none. Okay, I'm just putting some simple CSS here. Now what I want is when I right click on this menu, exactly where the click happened, right? That's where I want that that context menu to come up. Okay, that's kind of the idea here. Okay, so maybe what I can do here is once I have this information, okay, maybe I'll put some more classes here to make it work because we are doing it via programming, correct? So maybe I'll create an absolute class, okay, and a hidden class. Okay, this is CSS just so that we can style the applications, okay? And then I'll go back to the CSS and I'll say absolute means I'm setting the position to absolute. Why position absolute? Because you should be able to go to any coordinates in the screen, right? So you want the absolute coordinates where the click is happening. Okay, because there is absolute positioning and there is relative positioning. Okay, so I'll say absolute. Okay, so position absolute. Okay, and this is attached to this menu. Okay, and one more is hidden also, right? So let me just remove this now and I'll say hidden. This will simply set display to none. Okay, and you get the same effect now. Okay, so one thing is this menu is positioned absolutely. That means it will not respect the floats. It will not respect the flags, anything. Wherever exact X and Y coordinate is, that's what you will be getting. That's what position absolute is all about. Okay. Now what I want is I want this menu to come up when I right click here, right? Somewhere. Okay, and maybe this right click div that I have, right? It's actually a bit bigger. So maybe I'll come back here and say context. Okay, width of say 100 pixel, a height of 100 pixel, and a border of 1 pixel solid DDD. Okay, I'll put some padding here. Okay, now I can right click anywhere within this box, right? Big box. I could right click here. I could right click here, anywhere within this box. And I want that menu to exactly come at that particular location. Okay, so is the use case clear to everyone now at this point? Okay, okay, now let's try this out. Context and menu. Okay, let me just hide the CSS. So here I'll say const context equal to document.query selector context. Okay, and this is ID, right? So we have to give this hash sign. Okay, and then I'll say context dot. Okay, let me show you before I add the event. So I'll go to MDN and type in context menu. Okay, so context menu is an event already available within the browser now. Okay, so instead of tracking the mouse click and then checking whether the right button is clicked or the left button is clicked, okay, we can simply use the context menu event. Okay, so that's where, so you can go through this documentation. Then, okay, once I understand that, I'll come back here and say add event listener. Okay, and the event we are interested in is context menu. Okay, and we get a function, right, which has an event object. Okay, so this is our basic premise of the code. Okay, so this code will execute whenever you right click within that specific context, right? Just to show you, maybe I'll alert here. Okay, and there seems to be some error, right? I'm not very, yeah, function spelling is wrong here. Okay, function. Okay, now let's see whether this is working or not. At least the alert should come. Now I'm right clicking here and you get the alert here. Okay, and ignore this part. See, now this is the default browser behavior. Okay, right click. That's why you are getting this right click of this browser here. Okay, possibly maybe let me just try this out. E.prevent default. Okay, and then if I right click, see, now it's working, right? See, prevent default prevented the default behavior. Now we are not getting that other right click behavior, right? Okay, now I actually want the context menu to come wherever I click. Okay, that's the goal here. So now here I could say Same thing, right? Const rect equal to, I'm just writing bounding box equal to, okay, we need the element context dot get bounding client rect. Okay, then I'll directly write now const x equal to e dot client x minus box dot left offsetting. Okay, we can later on remove the offsetting and see the effect also. E dot client y minus b box dot top. Okay, and here we'll set the position of the menu. Okay, here we'll say, okay, we need the menu also, right? So we already have the menu, I suppose. Okay, we haven't grabbed it, right? So I'll say copy this, paste here, and we'll call it as menu. Okay, and it has an ID of menu. Okay, so this is the ID here. So if you observe, ID of menu is here, right? So once we get this menu object, we could change the style using the menu.style attribute and setting the top to the dynamic value that we have from here, which is y, the value of y, pixel. Okay, we are setting it in pixel. Similarly, we will set it for the left also. Okay, and this should be x. So you are changing the x and y coordinate of that menu. Okay, and then that hidden style has to be removed, right? Remove the hidden style. Okay, so I'll say menu dot class list. This class list will give you all the CSS classes, and I just want to remove the hidden class from it. Okay, this is the code actually. So hopefully this code should kind of work. Okay, and it should exactly open at the location where the right click is happening. Okay, later on you can use that code of click outside and close the menu. Okay, right now I'm not closing the menu, right? See, now if I go back and right click, see, you get the menu there. Okay, there are a couple of more things I may have to do here. Okay, so according to the width and size, right, it's actually kind of giving you the correct location. Is this clear, everyone, so far? Okay, now if I remove this property, okay, I'll come back here. Okay, and you have to observe and change the value and observe the results also. Okay, I'm simply removing it now. So I'm simply saying this is e dot client dot x, client x. This is e dot client y. Okay, so let's come here. Now see, you can see, right, the difference. Is it clear, everyone? Okay, because that offset has to be adjusted, right? So that's why we are removing the difference of that bounding rectangle. Okay, now see, now the question is this, right? So when you have a right click, you have the menu, right? Okay, I'm not styling the menu. Okay, but then when you click outside the menu, it should close. Now you already know how to do that, right? You have to use that click handler that we wrote. So now what we can do is, see, we can reuse our code probably. Okay, so where is the click handler code? So let me just open that JS bin. Okay, and okay, now this is where that requirement was. Title goes here. Is this the code? Okay. Okay, so let me just copy this code. Okay, and let me just come back here and let's put the code here. Okay, and I'll call it as say document click handler, doc click handler. Okay, I'll call it as doc click handler. Okay, now this code will change. So here we have to check whether the click happened within the pop-up menu or the context menu or outside the context menu, right? So that's what we need to try it out. So here we can simply say instead of model, it should be menu. Okay, and I'll negate it whether the menu contains the target. Okay, and if is clicked outside, okay, we will hide the menu. We will hide the menu. Okay, to hide the menu, we'll simply say menu dot class list dot add the hidden CSS class that we created, right? And we will also remove the event handler document as a best practice now, right? Because the menu is closed, right? So we'll also remove the event handler. So document dot remove event listener click, okay, doc handler this event should not be there because once the menu is removed, this should go away for now. Okay, now see, both the things are combined here, right? This model is not needed. So now if I go back here and right click, and if I click inside that, see, context, nothing happens. But when I click outside it, it will close. Inside, nothing happens. Outside, it should close actually. Yeah, I actually removed the handler, that's why, sorry. Okay, I think I wanted to show this demo continuously. I'll keep it for reference. Outside, close, outside, close. Is this clear, everyone? How these two things can be combined and build applications? Okay, now assume you style this thing, right? Like a menu, right? Everything looked very professional, context menus and things like that. Okay, just the way that it's coming in here, right? You can style the way you want. Okay, so these are small things, but once you understand, right, you will see certain complex functionality can be easily implemented. Okay, so is this clear so far, everyone? And you got some new insights today? Just let me know in the chat window. Okay, so I'll share this JSBin code link, as well as I'll upload the recording once it is done. Okay, please go through the materials, do make a revision, because this was just an introduction again to the advanced DOM part, right? So as I said, Monday, Wednesday, we will be going into more detailed examples, right? So in fact, once you complete this, right, any kind of DOM manipulation or UI interface manipulation you should be able to do with JavaScript. Okay, so that's it for today. Any queries, anyone? Okay, definitely go through these materials and practice so that these things are very, very clear to you. Okay, let me know in the chat window whether we are all good. Okay, okay. So that's it for today. And we will have the next session either on Monday or Wednesday, or on both days, depending on my schedule. But we will go into more advanced part. And after a couple of more sessions on DOM manipulations, we will go into the language features. Okay, some of the important methods in JavaScript, some of the concepts in JavaScript like closures. Okay, some of the concept like context and scope and this, right? Anonymous functions, something, a little bit about everything. Okay, before we start with the project, we'll do a small project, not one project, couple of small projects in JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice day. Thank you.